Welcome to the conversation on the Young Turks. Since the pandemic has started in Los Angeles, California, it is hard to have a conversation with anyone here without talking about how great the air quality is in Los Angeles because no one is driving. Well, not only is that a theme here in Los Angeles, it's going to be a theme on the screen. We're joined today by Fisher Stevens, with whom I have shared an audience to actor relationship dating back to high school, and Jean-Éric who goes by Jev, who is joining us from Paris. They are involved in a project that's amazing that Fisher has directed called And We Go Green. Jean-Éric Jev is a race car driver, and they are highlighting the effects of electric cars through Formula One. And Fisher, I'll start with you. Let's talk about the idea. How did this project get on your radar?
Well, I have to say I'm not a race car fan. At least I wasn't for this project. And I was having lunch in my office one day when Leonardo DiCaprio called me. We had just finished making a film called Before the Flood. And he said, come meet me in Brooklyn for lunch at the racetrack. And I said, dude, there's no racetrack in Brooklyn. And he goes, what do you mean? Yeah, there's a racetrack, Formula E. It's in Red Hook. Now, I live about 7 minutes on my Vespa from Red Hook. And I had no idea that there was a race going on there. And it was the day before the race. Leo was having lunch and a look at the place. He invites me down, introduces me to Alejandro Agag, who created Formula E. Alejandro is this kind of bigger than life character. I think we capture him pretty well in this film. And he's like, Fisher, this is Formula E. He shows me around. Leo's like, we should make a documentary about this, man. It's another environmental doc through sports. I wasn't really quite sure. Like racing, more environmental films. It's like, oh my God, I know the planet is burning, but so next thing I called my buddy Malcolm Venville in London, who knows racing, and I said, will you meet me in Valencia, Spain? They want to fly me to meet all these drivers and see if there's a film to be made of Formula E. And Malcolm flew to Valencia, and I'm not saying this because he's right there, but when Malcolm and I met Jev, Jean-Éric and Andre Lauder, who were teammates in a team called Tachita, we kind of knew between them and Alejandro, we had a film because we knew we had these crazy characters. So that was how it started.
And so, Jev, when you meet film directors, you're a race car driver, right? Something that no one has ever said about me. When you meet these filmmakers and you want to highlight, obviously, what you're doing, what's your first inclination here? I mean, this is something that you do for a living, but is it also a mission? Is that a part of what your job is?
Well, I remember the first time I met Fisher was not in Valencia. I was actually in Hong Kong. So I think he met a couple of drivers in Valencia, and then he met myself in Hong Kong for the first race. And I think if I remember well, Alejandro told him that if he wants to follow a few drivers, I was out of that list originally. Then I had an interview with Fisher, and I think. I don't know why Fisher chose me. I'm French. I don't have a very good English accent. But I guess I was speaking out the truth of what I was feeling and what I wanted to do and what I was doing. And Alejandro said, yeah, but, he's in a small team. He hasn't won any championships, so I don't think that's your guy, But we proved Alejandro wrong. And it was, a fantastic ride together with Fisher and Malcolm. I met two great guys. We became friends, and we spent so much time during the year. And, to reply your question, we're not used to that. I never thought one day I would be acting in a documentary, or that I would be sharing the red carpet in Cannes with Leonardo DiCaprio. So it was quite an amazing experience.
I'm sure it was. The film is called And We Go Green. Jev, I want to ask you, when did you decide to go green? I imagine, like with any profession, and I can't speak to yours, that you make decisions about how you want to pursue it. As a journalist, you go into print or you go into electronic. Was there something that sort of forced your hand into this, or was this a choice you made to actually start racing electric cars?
It was it was a choice, but I didn't have much choice back then. I was in Formula One. I was here 2014, and I was running out of contract. The team I was racing into also did not offer me another year of contract, so I was kind of left on the sidewalk, and I needed to find a drive. So my manager told me that I should consider Formula E. That's not something I was considering at the beginning, but then I said, okay, I need to race. Let's give it a shot. And I went in the first race, end of 2014, in Punta del Este, Uruguay, and that was my first race. And it went pretty well. And from the very first race, I thought this championship could be something, really huge, really big, with a lot of car manufacturers joining and being a world championship.
Fisher, tell me a little about the timing of And We Go Green. Why now? I mean, obviously, we're at a point of evolution with an electric car. We're at a time where climate is talked about more than it had been in the past, even though you have an administration that pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accords. Tell us why the timing of this makes it a perfect film for the moment.
Well, we tried to avoid being preachy about climate change in this film. And I think there's a version of this film that Jeb hasn't seen that's on the cutting room floor where we spend quite a bit of time talking about climate change and climate issues. But we realized we made that film and we can make more of a statement if we show these guys, these drivers, get to know these drivers, make it more about the characters, and then ultimately show how cool these cars are so that everybody wants to drive an electric car. There's a scene in the movie where Jeb is taking this gondola up across Santiago, and he looks out. He goes, "You see out there? You can't see those mountains because of the pollution." He says, "I guarantee you, if everyone drives electric cars, you can see those mountains." Well, from my friend in Santiago told me you can see those mountains now because of COVID-19.
Yeah, so, it's an incredible thing. That goes to what I was saying here about Los Angeles. I mean, you can see Los Angeles again. I'd rather probably see the mountains of Chile than LA. But Jeb, talk to that a little bit. The notion that this industry, the automobile industry, is going toward electric anyway. Are you sort of ahead of a curve? Are there people that in the rest of the Formula One world, one that you were associated so closely with for so long, that look at you now with envy that you're ahead of a curve that they aren't literally?
I wouldn't judge really, if they look at me with envy. But when I left F1, quite clearly, I was the little yellow duck, that didn't belong there. And after a few years in Formula E, I guess I made myself a name, and not only through the result that I have, but also through everything we're doing. The documentary on Green is the perfect example. So you race on one hand, you try and win, you try and be competitive, but on the other hand, you also raise awareness about climate change and about the new technologies that are coming. And the new technologies is not the future anymore, it's the present. It's electric cars. And that's what we see in that documentary.
And tell me quickly about the guy thing about it. What's the difference for you driving a Formula E car from a Formula One car? Just the feel for it and what the difference to a layperson would be.
It's quite a lot of difference. It's very difficult. It's like if you want to compare an apple and a pear. I would say that the first and biggest difference is in the mentality of the championship. We're only racing in city centers. Formula One is not, beside Monaco and Singapore. We race street circuits, so therefore we race in Hong Kong, in Paris, Rome, New York, Mexico, Santiago, and many other countries. Because we're here to promote as well electric mobility. So take Paris as an example. The mayor of Paris wants to get rid of all the cars, but she's been the one pushing to have Formula E because it promotes electric vehicles. So it's also a very strong message that is being sent to all the people living in the cities that we can race electric cars, so you can buy an electric car and go to work with your car. And maybe in the near future, when the cities are going to be only electric, we're going to be able to see, for example, your city in Los Angeles, where you see no more pollution. I've seen in London and Paris, where you can see actually all the buildings from coming, when you come from the motorway, like 10, 15 kilometers away, before you just could see a dark cloud. And now you see very clear the whole city, and you can see the Eiffel Tower from my parents' place, which is 1 hour away from Paris by car.
An amazing thing. The question is, so how, when they're only electric vehicles, how's Fisher going to get his Vespa to go to Red Hook in 7 minutes? That's the real mystery.
It will be fast. How do I charge it? The problem we have in Brooklyn right now, and my house is solar, which is great, but I have no place to plug in vehicles because we don't have garages. So that's the challenge in Brooklyn. Same
Understood.
A little bit.
Fisher, tell me about And We Go Green. I want to know two things. First of all, how can people see it, A, and when can they? And B, what you hoped to accomplish by getting involved in the project?
And We Go Green just premiered on Hulu this week, so it's streaming on Hulu in America. It was on Canal Plus in France. I want people to drive electric cars. I want people to understand that electric cars are cool, and I want people to get very into Formula E as a sport because it's the smallest carbon footprint sport on the planet. And I think the drivers are fantastic characters, and the competition is the best competition of any motorsport in the world. So obviously I've become a huge fan.
Yeah, it seems that way. I'm breaking a rule here with the team, but I have to ask you, Fisher, I'd be remiss for not asking, was Elon Musk a character in the making of this at all?
No, I've interviewed Elon Musk in Before the Flood and in Racing Extinction. He did not want to participate in Formula E. He said because he wanted to spend all of his time and all of his resources in furthering Tesla, and they were so far behind in orders, and they had to put all their energy, manpower, and finances into that. So no American companies except Jay Penske, who is an American who has a team called Dragon. Is the only American involved at this point in Formula E, and Michael Andretti, who co-partnered with BMW on a team. Otherwise, I was really one of the only Americans other than Jay and Michael around that place.
Pretty cool. Fisher Stevens, Jean-Éric Vert, Jeff. Now I know him well enough to call him Jeff. I really great luck with this film. I'm really eager to see it, and good luck on the racetrack, Jeff. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.